I just wanted to clarify this before the video started. I did not get this idea from Eric Estep's video. I was already mostly done editing by the time I saw that video. I got this idea in the shower days prior. Trust me.
Hello everybody, today we're going to be doing something just a little bit different from my normal style of content. We're going to be ranking every single Cup Series race since the start of this season on a tier list. So let's get started and get right into this video. Okay, that looks just about right. That's it for the video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Aw, we kid here on the NASCAR 44 channel. Alrighty, so basically what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to give just a little overview of the race itself. I had to look some of these up because I low-key forgot. Sorry guys. And I'm going to assign a rating here. S, A, B, C, or F. I know D comes after C. I did actually pass elementary school, but I figured that the F layer needed to be there. So with that being said, let's start off with the first race of the season, the Clash at the Coliseum. This race for me was pretty mediocre. The Clash has always been kind of questionable at that track. It's put on some decent racing here and there, but for the most part it's just all about the track rather than the actual racing product. And of course it was a Denny win, so it can only be so good. I'm gonna put it in C for Clash. Next up, we got the duels. This is the precursor to the Daytona 500. Personally, nothing special. Also gonna join the Clash at C. And finally, the first points-paying race of the season.
The Daytona 500, February 18th on Fox.
Now this is when my personal biases get in the way, because personally I did not enjoy the 500 at all. I think the ending really left a sour taste in my mouth between the Hendrick guys wrecking the entire field and then cruising to a first and second place finish respectively, and the fact that we ended the race under caution like most years. Part of me wants to drop it in F because of how much I hated it. Part of me thinks that C is probably the correct answer here, but I'm going to just listen to my bias here and just drop it right in F. I personally did not enjoy that race at all. Apologies to the Hendrick Motorsports fans that are watching. I'm sorry, I just couldn't get down with it at all. Next up, we got Phoenix, which Christopher Bell won. If you didn't remember, trust me, I didn't remember either. Not a lot happened in this race itself. It was pretty boring. Phoenix has put on a bunch of boring races recently. C, because I really just don't remember anything that happened. And finally, we get into some spicy stuff here. Atlanta Motor Speedway, the first Atlanta race of the season, and it's a big one. And you know where that's gonna go. I mean, come on. If you didn't enjoy this Atlanta race, then I don't know what you find entertaining, but that was the peak of entertainment right there. Between the wild, all over the place racing, the multi-grooves, the chaos, and the incredible finish, there's really nothing that could beat this race, and it's probably going to be the race of the year once we finish this year and look back on everything. Absolute S tier race. I think that's a good place for it. Next up, Las Vegas. Kyle Larson won this race. I remember he was getting hunted down from Tyler Reddick multiple times throughout the race, and Tyler could just never get him and beat him. I think this is our first B tier race. The racing itself was alright. Traditional, kind of mediocre, next gen medium track race, and a pretty traditional Hendrick Motorsports win with not a lot happening other than Tyler Reddick trying to pass him. I think B is a good spot for this one. And another big one here, Bristol. Oh boy. Part of me, very much so, thinks that this race deserves to be the whole way up in S, and honestly, I feel like it's a necessary decision. If you're wondering what that photo is, by the way, it's a destroyed tire. I thought that was pretty accurate to the race itself. And even though the racing could have gotten out of hand at times, it kind of wasn't that bad at all. And I think just because of the fact that the race was so damn entertaining, I think it's going to go up there in the S tier. I think that's a good pick. Ah yes, Coda. It has been on and off with the good and bad racing all over the place for that track. The Xfinity Series has put on a pretty good show every year. The Cup Series has been so on and off that you never know what you're going to get when you go there. Byron, it's a Byron win. I think we see a trend here with Byron wins being at races that were really boring. But this one was also a real snoozer. I think it deserves a fit right in the F tier as well. Again, sorry Byron fans, but your boy wins races that are bad. Ah, Richmond. Finally a Richmond race that I'm kind of entertained watching. The finish of it was the only thing that I remember from that race, along with the accident between Larson and Bubba Wallace. Honestly, some pretty good stuff. For a Richmond race, it deserves to be an A. Okay, Martinsville race number 1. What a shitstorm of a race. It's a next-gen race at Martinsville. You know it's going to be pretty bad. The fact that we had the Hendrick Motorsports anniversary deal with all those cars, and Fox Sports pushing down that subject every single break, every single moment, even during the racing. It was really frustrating to watch, and it was another pretty boring William Byron win. To be honest, I really want to throw it an F, and I think that's where it deserves to be. What a flop. And it's not that I don't like Byron, which I mean, I kind of don't. But that really is the factor here that puts him in the F tier. It's the fact that these races are either really boring or just straight up anger me. Next up is the Texas race. This one was a pretty good race for Texas standards. Usually it puts on some crappy racing, but with the next gen car, it's put on some decent racing. It was a pretty chaotic race, and that's honestly the best you can get out of Texas. It's usually either chaos or boring as hell. So a chaos race at Texas is usually a pretty good race. Honestly, I think it deserves to be an A tier race. I kind of liked it. I kind of enjoyed it. The Chase Elliott winning storyline was probably a pretty good one for NASCAR too, so it had an overall positive effect on the sport. I think that's probably one of the best Texas races I ever watched, and I think that's why it deserves to be in the A tier. And another biggins, we got Talladega 1. Alrighty, now this one is going to be so-so. The finish itself was alright, and I do have some bias here as a Tyler Reddick fan, but personally I think that I've seen much more impressive racing out of Talladega. I know that the next gen car has made the racing just a little bit worse after the Gen 6 had those incredible racings with those giant ass spoilers. That was the best super speedway racing you can get. Unfortunately, we don't got that no more, but I mean the racing we got is alright. I think an A tier rating is pretty accurate there. And Dover Motor Speedway. This race this year was pretty much falling in the same place as the rest of them. Pretty mediocre, pretty mid. Denny Hamlin win. I think that's accurate right there at a C tier.
Side note here, editing Logan, I realized after I recorded this, days after I'm editing right now, that I completely forgot to mention Kansas Motor Speedway. I missed the race. I don't know how I did. I have all the notes in front of me. You hear it right here. And I missed writing down stuff for Kansas. So now I'll have to do this now while I'm in the middle of editing. S tier race, okay? That's my rating for it. If you could just like, you know, take the video and just, yeah, like that. There we go. There we go. We'll just leave that there. Really great race. The photo finish was incredible. Everything was incredible. It was just Kansas. Kansas has been really good. Every single next gen race at Kansas has either been good or incredible.
Ah yes, Darlington. What a pretty good race out of that track. The slick track coupled with the next gen car's ability to drive good on, or I guess technically drive terribly, on the 1.5 mile tracks and tracks of similar size, led to a race that was really good. Between the battles with Tyler Reddick and the RFK cars at the end, and of course the brawl at the end as well. Personally, I think that this race is pretty good. High-end A tier. I might consider throwing that in S tier. Let me think about it. And there was a fight and Keselowski won. I think it's accurate. I think S tier is going to be where that one deserves to be. I'm going to try to avoid my bias saying how one of my favorite drivers almost got his ass beat. Other than that, great race. I loved every moment of it. And speaking of getting your ass beat, it is the All-Star race. As someone who is a Joey Logano stan, unfortunately, this race I can still admit was pretty boring. And the only storyline coming out of that was the obvious one, the fight between Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and Kyle Busch, and that's all this race had. Basically, the rest of it was pretty shit. If it wasn't for the fact that we had a good fight, I think this thing would have been a big stinking F, but C because of the fight. I think that's good. Ah, yes, Charlotte Motor Speedway. Last year, this was the best race of the year in my opinion, and it was not the case this year. Not only did we not get to see the finish, that's the wrong one, this one's the right one. Not only did we not get to see the finish because of rain, but I thought the racing itself was a little bit worse than the year prior. I'm going to put this in C for Charlotte, and also, if there was a D, it would probably be in D, but I'm not putting an F. D would be for disappointment, and that race was extremely disappointing. I think C is a pretty good place for this. Next up, Gateway. It is put on an on and off show. Sometimes the racing is decent, sometimes the racing is mediocre. Personally, this race had its good finish, and that was pretty much it for the good. The racing itself was, again, pretty mediocre, but that's pretty typical of a next-gen Gateway race. I'm going to throw that in B for that. I think the interesting finish at the end is what saved it from being in a lower tier. But other than that, I think that's a pretty good spot for it. Next up, Sonoma. Kyle Larson put on a clinic. The racing was a lot of cautions, okay? There was a lot of cautions. Probably one of the most chaotic Sonoma races that we've seen in the past few years. And for that, I think it deserves to be higher than an F, because most Sonoma races I feel like tend to be pretty boring. So the fact that we had a chaotic one already makes it a little bit more interesting than normal. I think C is a pretty good rating. Because I really can't think of anything else other than the fact that there was a bunch of wrecks. I think that's going to be a good spot for it. And then Iowa, won by Ryan Blaney. I actually kind of liked the racing on the track. The racing was pretty racy. I think it's a high-end B to low-end A. Thinking about it going against Talladega, Texas, and Richmond. But it's against these two there. I think an A tier rating is pretty good. The racing itself was pretty solid, and I think Iowa really held up. It deserves to get a second year on the calendar for the Cup Series. And next up, the New Hampshire race, or as some call it, the Loudon race, won by Christopher Bell. Again, there's a trend between him and Byron for winning races that aren't extremely exciting. This one was actually a lot more exciting than a traditional Loudon race due to the fact that they were running on rain tires for a portion of the race. And I think that was what made the racing actually pretty decent. There was a good stretch where it was multi-groove cars running all over the place trying not to wreck, and I actually enjoyed quite a bit of it. I think that this deserves to be in the B tier. And Nashville. Technically, I missed this race because I was on vacation at the time. But personally, I think that the racing was all over the place between all the cautions and the chaos. So, the chaos factor makes it at least somewhat intriguing. But sometimes too much chaos can just be terrible. I mean, that Knoxville race in the Truck Series was pretty miserable back in 2021. I couldn't relive that race. It's just too much sometimes, and I think that this one is probably in the same boat as that, just too much chaos.
The pack, so struggling with his race car, just trying to find some speed. The grip isn't there.
Just in front. Oh, and around goes the 54.
Is able to stay on there where he needs to be, up the racetrack, gets into the 15.
Car up into the wall behind them. And that's the 43.
Oh, a wreck behind him. We see the 9 of Chase Elliott, Rick.
Gano, do they have to run a long
Oh,
ways?
Christopher Bell
Don't have
around. Big damage on the 20.
Believe it. Oh, big spin.
Kozlowski into the wall.
Down the back straightaway.
Yeah, there's got to be more to this story because the 7.
Denny Hamlin coming. Oh, and a slide by Austin Cindric. That brings the caution out. There'll be a restart. Big push by the 5, and up the racetrack he catches the 1. Chastain into the wall. Big contact, caution comes out again. To come all the way back around. They're wrecking behind him. The caution will come out again. There's more overtime.
Caution on the back.
The 5 doesn't go. They bottle up behind him. Big wreck for the 8. Goes sideways into the wall and then down. Logano looking for a win in 2024. Logano going to win in Nashville.
Personally, B is right where I think it should be. And second to last here, a couple weeks ago, we had the Chicago Street Course, and this one was won by Alex Bowman in the 48. His first win in a long time. For that, already it deserves to be in a decent tier. Whenever we get drivers who aren't really winning consistently win, it usually makes the racing a little bit more interesting. You never want to see some guy dominate the entire series unless you're really boring. Then I mean, I guess you enjoy that. At the same time though, the racing wasn't as good as the year prior, and the fact that SVG got wrecked out pretty early was pretty disappointing to me. I think a B tier is pretty solid for this race. Not as good as the previous season, but I still enjoyed it. Alrighty, finally the final race out of these 21 that we have had so far. And this one was literally a couple days ago. Pocono Raceway, won by Ryan Blaney. All around a pretty decent Pocono race. I mean, could have been better. Last year's race was much better. You know, honestly, kind of a snooze fest now that I think about it. I think C is pretty accurate for it. And with that being said, we basically concluded this entire video. I'm sure that someone here is going to disagree, especially the fact that I put the Byron wins in the F tier. Again, I'm trying to explain to you guys that it's not the fact that Byron won that made the races suck. I think that the main problems with these races was it was boring, and that's why Byron won, because it was a boring race. Byron wins boring races, except for the Daytona 500, and that had its own problems. I think that him being down there is totally fair. But if you disagree with me, make sure to comment down below. I'd like to hear your opinions. If you agree with me, comment down below. I don't care. If you have anything to say at all, comment down below. I'd like to hear you guys' opinions on this, and hey, maybe you'll change mine a little bit. But yeah, with that being said, this is a tier list. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm trying to experiment with a lot of different kinds of content. As you can see with the Phasmophobia upload, nothing to do with my channel, but I enjoyed editing it, and I will continue doing random shit just because I enjoy it. I really want my channel to be a reflection on where I am creatively. I'm hoping that I'm able to expand my topics, grow my channel outwards, instead of just having this narrow field of things that I make videos on. And I'm hoping these couple of videos are me dipping my toes in the water, starting to feel out what it's like to do these different kinds of videos and seeing how well they do on the platform. And I really hope that these do well on the platform, because it'll tell me that I need to do more of it. With that being said, that concludes our video. Love you guys. I hope you have a great day, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. We're going to stick to more traditional crash comps for the next one, and then we might go a little crazy again. With that being said, see you guys in the next one. Peace.